Today we're going to do an enamelling tutorial. Melissa and Teresa, we're going to talk you through the basics and how to go about putting enamel powdered glass onto metal.
Right. We're using copper.
So, first of all, we're going to clean it, and in order to do that, we're going to use an abrasive sponge. I'm rubbing this completely over the piece of copper. Once you've rubbed it, you do not want to put your greasy fingers on it again, so I just fold that over like that and then rub the rest of the piece. Then we need to put that on a piece of tissue. I'm just using a palette knife and then I'm wiping that down. Any of this dust or dirt that gets in your piece will ruin your enamels. So cleanliness at every stage is the key. So now I'm taking this and I'm placing it on a small piece of wood to hold it up off.
It's just so it's a stilt.
Yeah, this is just so that it's easier to pick it up in a moment when we need to put it onto the mesh. I'm going to do a picture, so for the back of my piece it doesn't matter really what it looks like. This is a small sieve with a 60 mesh. You can get 40 mesh, 100 mesh, and the mesh means how many holes there are per inch. So if you've got one with really big holes, it comes out really quickly. You can't really see that, but this is my preferred mesh when I'm doing pictures, which is 60 mesh. When you tip the glass out, you don't want to put it in one big blob over your piece. You need to do it to one side. When you hold this, if you hold it too high, it spreads everywhere. If you come too close, you can knock your piece. So you need to be just high enough to tap your glass onto the copper and cover it evenly.
You want a really nice even coat.
You don't want to be able to see the copper through it anymore, but if you do it too thick, when you put it in the kiln, the glass will bubble up like the surface tension of the glass. It's better to do 2 coats or 3 coats than one thick coat. This is the mesh that we use to start off with the first layer. So the copper is going to touch the mesh. So it's okay to go in the kiln like that. We're going over to the kiln. I've got the stand here, I've got a fork, and then it's going into a Paragon kiln, but there's all types of kilns. This is just the one that I tend to use. So I'm going to open the door, put it in.
It's on at about 800-ish.
It is.
768 at the moment, but
as soon as you open the door, the temperature drops right down. So I'm going to wait for the temperature to come back up. I work with time and temperature. Other enamelers will work by looking through the window.
That's what I do.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
I don't like to do that. So I'm just going to wait for that to come back up to about 800, about a minute and a half. So the temperature's come back up to nearly 800 degrees, so I'm going to open the door and check the piece.
If you don't have a proper firing fork, then you can use barbecue tools.
So that's just fired. It's going to go back in again in a minute, so we're not too concerned about it being fully glazed. Also, it's the back of a picture, so it doesn't matter quite what it looks like. This enamel that I've used here is a mixture. It's called counter enamel, and it's a mixture of all the different colours.
It's kind of your leftover
it's your
enamels.
leftovers, yes. You can buy counter enamel, but there's no need because you do make enough.
Because you'll end up making a mess.
Yes.
So you get lots of different kind of examples. This one here has just got the powder on. This one is really quite underfired. You can see it's kind of got like a sugary layer on. It's not been fused properly to the copper. This one, slightly more fired, but it's still underfired and it's kind of got like an orange peely effect. This one you can see it on a little bit better. It's more orange peely. This one is fired just right, because you can see it's the shiny glossy layer. And this one here, it has been overfired. You can see that it's kind of burning away from here at the edges. So you are aiming for this one here, okay?
This piece is now cooled down, and on the back, can you see that, Melissa? How it's gone all black and That's called fire scale. That is horrible in your enamel. You don't want those black specks in your enamel. Now if you're doing transparents, this would need to go into pickle or be scrubbed very, very thoroughly with pumice or something like that to get rid of every last scrap, because that fire scale will show through your clear transparents. We're using opaque today, so all I need to do is get rid of that flaky stuff. I'm going to the sink just to give it a scrub with a scouring pad. It doesn't need too much. I am just literally getting rid of the loose flaky. I'm going to dry that on a lint-free tissue. Back over to here. And now this is where the fun begins. So I'm going to do this, I think, in a yellow background. Same as the back, we're just going to sieve it on in one even coat. Now, because there's copper on the bottom, I can't put that on the same mesh stand as I used before. I'm going to use this trivet today. There are different types of trivets, but I just quite like this one. So basically, where the bare copper on the side is safe to touch the edges of this metal and it supports it. This is now going to go in the kiln, same as before. Now, safety, I am using a glove because the handle of this is very, very hot. You can also wear a glove on this hand if you want to. I've just got such a long fork, I don't feel I need one. The size of that trivet is really thick, so it is like a heat sink, and it takes a lot more time for this to come back up to temperature. You can see that that temperature's dropped right down to 738. So that'll start climbing back up again in a moment. Oh, it's still dropping. So I know that that has to come back up to at least 780 for the glass to be fused. As I say, Melissa looks through and watches her piece. I just wait for the temperature to come back up.
It's really whatever you prefer.
It is. And also, not every kiln has got the
a
thermostat
regulator.
on it. No.
The kiln I started with didn't have one, which is why I learnt to look and see.
I think you can damage your eyes if you're doing hours and hours and hours of enamelling, looking into the kiln. You can get
you can
cataracts.
probably wear
You can wear glasses, yeah. So that's still dropping. We will come back to this in a minute when it's fully fused. Down quite a lot now, so I'm just going to pick it up, take it over to the table, and I'll show you where we're at with it. So here there was a really good coating, here less so. So I'm going to completely cover this in a second coat because I want a nice good coat of yellow.
So we're doing the process again.
It's about building up layers.
Yeah. It's like painting.
Yeah.
But with powdered glass.
I'm going to use my fingers this time. As long as I keep the pad of my finger off the top of the piece, it's okay to lift it. Or you can use, of course, the palette knife.
I don't use the palette knife.
No.
Because I find that harder.
Again, there's lots and lots of ways of doing this. So that's just going to go back in again for another probably about 2 minutes because the size of the...
And it's got another layer on now. So, we're back. I'm going to do some decoration on here, and we're using some ruby transparent enamel and a teeny tiny sieve because we want to be able to do it in specific places. I'm going to use this and I'm going to put it in because it's small enough and scoop it. Now I've got bits on the side, I'm going to brush those off so that the top's clean as well, because otherwise that's going to go on our enamel. And I'm just going to, when it decides to come out.
Can I just say, I find running a knife or my long nails down that metal bit there makes it bounce out quite nicely.
Ah, very nice.
Just a little
tip
from Teresa's table.
A tip from Teresa's table. Let's try it. Ooh.
Oh,
Very nice. It's kind of got like red flakes in it.
it's a lovely colour.
I'm not going everywhere with it because I want to see some of the yellow too. I'm just kind of having a mush of colours. Technical term there.
Mush.
Of colours. Yeah. Now I'm going to use my tweezers, and I have some glass threads here. Can you see? They're little tiny rods of glass. And then I've got some millefiori here, which are very pretty. You can use them, or you can also use like little seed beads or any sort of glass beads. You just don't want them to be massive beads. Like you couldn't put one that was that big on without breaking it in half, because it just ping off. So I'm just going to place a few on. In kind of a random design, because I think that's quite nice sometimes.
All these glasses will melt at different rates, so the very large yellow, red, white and blue bead will not melt quite so much as the threads are. So if you want everything to melt evenly, you need to pick everything to be the same size. So this is going to be quite textural.
Yeah, but I like that. Okay.
Now, Melissa has just used the powder to hold the beads in place. You can also use Clear Fire.
This is one brand. There's probably other ones, but this is the one we like. And you can get it from Thompson Enamel.
You can get it from Vitrum Signum as well.
You can get it from Vitrum Signum as well. There we go. Okay, so, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
The enamel is on there so that hopefully these won't move around too much. So I'm going to transfer it onto my stilt, which we've been using before, and it's so that the other side that we've counter enamelled, doesn't stick. I'm going to put it in the kiln because it's at 807-ish. The kiln drops really fast, especially with that big one in. And we're going to leave it in there for about, 2 minutes?
Yeah.
To hopefully get the millefiori to kind of melt down and fuse to the glass a bit more. Yeah. I'll do a little peek. Let's have a little look. Can you see? I'm only going to have it open for a second. The strings are starting to melt. The little glass threads. So we're getting there, but the temperature's still very low, which we need a bit higher. What's happening? So it's starting to melt down into it a little bit with that big one and the millefiori. The stringers have melted down. I'm going to close it again. The stringers, the little glass threads, have melted into the piece really nicely, but the millefiori hasn't melted down enough for my liking. If you wanted it so that it's kind of sitting on top but it is fused, I could take it out now, but I want it so that it's kind of sitting into the piece a bit more. Are you filming?
I am now.
Okay, we've got a sneak peek. Let's have a look. Oh, that's melted down a bit better. I still want it a little bit more melted. So,
of course, the risk you have there, Melissa, is the longer you leave it in, there's a chance that the colours underneath will burn out, like we talked about at the beginning. Yeah.
But I'm going to risk it.
Okay.
I feel like it's quite a nice melted. So, let's have a little look. Ooh. So we've got our millefiori is melted in. Our stringers are like melted completely in, so they're quite flat. The millefiori, it's still slightly raised, which gives it a bit of texture. Should look quite nice when it's cooled down.
So we've taken the piece out of the kiln, it's cooled down and we're ready just now to finish it off. Melissa liked the way it finished. It's quite interesting because while we were waiting for the millefiori to melt down, these glass stringers have melted in and almost disappeared, but it's a really lovely ghosting effect. So we're not going to add any more, we're not going to do any more.
But if you wanted to, you could.
If you wanted to, you could. You could add more of anything, more powder, more beads, whatever you fancied. We've just decided to stop at this stage. Now, because it was in the kiln for quite a little while, on the back it's just started to catch and touch the stand. So it's got a little, bearing in mind of course it is glass, it's got a sharp ridge on it. We need to move that, remove it. You can get this stuff called diagrit, which is diamond impregnated pieces of, well, file I suppose. This is sticky back plastic and you can stick it to anything. I tend to use a high-tech knife, kitchen knife. You can also use these pads that you can get, glass flex pads. They are very expensive but they last forever. And you can also use a carbundum stone, which you can get from the different suppliers of enamels. So this best works when it's wet, so I'm just going to wet it and then rub over there to get rid of the little sharp ridge. Also, on the edges we've got the fire scale that we talked about right at the very beginning, so you can remove that.
Which is the black coming off.
That's the black coming off, so you can see the copper showing through now. You can leave it there if you want to. Not doing any harm.
I quite like it because I leave it there a lot of the time. But you clean yours up a lot.
I do. And the other thing is, if you're doing fine jewellery, it can ping off in the kiln up onto your piece, and then you'll find that you've got a little bit of black fire scale on your piece. Now again, this is just beginning to pull in from the edges, so you've got a little dark frame. If you really hated that, you could, as we've just said, add more enamel, fire it less long, or I think that's just...
Fire it less long.
or less high temperature. A shorter period. So that is that done now. So we can now use that as in a piece of jewellery, set it, or whatever you want to do with it, really. Thank you. So ends our first YouTube video.